Ministers have been discussing a full embargo on Russian oil today. Hungary has made it clear that it will block these efforts. Just talk us through what some of the sticking points are for all countries in the EU.
Well, Sally, there are actually many sticking points. There is a renewed commitment. If we were having this conversation 4 months ago, I'd tell you what it is that currently is underway in this EU meeting in France would be flatly impossible. So we've gone mega steps toward Europe attempting to sever itself from a reliance upon Russian energy. The simple fact of the matter is that is not possible in toto for at least 24 months. So we're going to see the next 2 years as one of increasingly jockeying for position. We will have some countries able to sever most of their connections from Moscow much more quickly than others. Hungary, for one, Slovakia, for another, will not be able to do so. And they're already on record as opposing the current initiative on banning Russian oil. Germany, on the other hand, that is very reliant upon Russian natural gas and oil, is already committed to severing any imports of Russian oil by the end of 2022, and is well on its way to substantially reducing the amount of natural gas it must get from Russia much more quickly than any of us had anticipated. So it's a mixed bag, but clearly Europe is moving away from Moscow.
So perhaps the best option here is a phased-in oil embargo. But of course, we know that Bulgaria and Poland have already been cut off from Russian gas supplies. Is there a chance that Russia will move on to bigger, more influential countries like Germany and just simply cut them off?
Well, there's a couple of things you have to remember about the current structure of the contracts from which or through which Europe receives its Russian oil and gas. It happens that Bulgaria and Poland are in the final year of their natural gas contracts. So you can expect that Moscow is going to be leaning on them most heavily because they have the least amount of time to find alternative sources. On the other hand, I know for a fact personally that Poland has been searching for new sources for at least the last 18 months. So this has not been a completely new or unavoidable sort of result. Remember that the Poles have a new LNG facility on the Baltic Sea at Swinoujscie, which has just completed a massive upgrade of its ability to import natural gas. And there are prospects now that additional American LNG will be going to northern Poland in the rather near term. There are other alternatives. In Bulgaria, the interesting development is Bulgarian-Greek negotiations for the new LNG terminal off of Alexandroupolis in Germany, in Greece, in which Bulgaria would be able to replace a large amount of the natural gas it currently receives from Russia. So there are other elements taking place here. There are other dimensions taking place here. The last one I'm going to mention is probably the most important, but once again here we're looking at a year to 18 months. And that is there are significant new sources coming online from MENA, from the Middle East, North Africa. Now your commentator did mention some of this with new Algerian and to a lesser extent Libyan contracts coming into Europe. Egypt is another major source. Iraq natural gas is a major source, which would include northern Iraq, namely Kurdistan. The important wild card there is access to the pipelines that cross Turkey into the mainland of Europe.
Yeah, and so of course the big ambitions for countries like Germany is to eventually move into more green energies, but dependency on Russian gas varies largely within Europe. But there are fears that a total cut-off of Russian gas would plunge countries, including Germany, into a recession. What would EU countries need to put in place to cope with a full embargo if they had to do that?
Well, I don't think a full embargo of natural gas is likely in the near term. A more complete embargo of Russian oil by the end of 2022 is possible, although some countries like Slovakia and Hungary will not agree to it. The reason is simple. I mean, the Slovakians require Russian oil for 96% of its domestic needs, so they really have no alternatives. We will see a progressive EU move to expand the number of alternative sources. We will see new LNG contracts being signed with Qatar, the world's largest provider of LNG, and the United States. We are already seeing a new upgrading of contracts in the North Sea, that's UK, Norwegian production. Those have been declining significantly because of the cost factor. It's simply too expensive, more expensive than other sources. The problem is this is now a strategic, not simply a cost-centered issue. And once it becomes strategy, the North Sea comes back into focus. And there are a number of other elements as well. Some people are reaching out to my folks, for example, looking for a renewal of Polish domestic shale gas production,
Yeah.
which is another alternative, but once again is further down the line.
Really interesting to hear your thoughts.